Hey guys, welcome back to the episode number 7. Today we are gonna learn how you can modify the data table that ships with the WordPress. So let's get our hands dirty. Alright, so basically data table is the presentation of your data that comes from the database into your WordPress backend. For example, if we hover over the movies and click on all movies, and then we will see a table presentation with the data loaded. As you can see, WordPress has already given us some default columns, although we are using custom post types, but WordPress already given us some default columns like title, author, categories, commenting, and date. So if we want to modify this data table, you can do that. You can add custom columns, like if you want to show the poster of the movies, you can do that. You can also add the release year or any custom column that you want. So let's head over into the code editor and start our coding. Now let's expand the inc folder and let's create another folder here and named it data table or data tables. And inside the data tables, let's create movie data table.php. Now we are going to modify the movie data table. So let's open the php tag, and we are gonna need two functions initially. So let's add those functions, and it will be add columns to data table. We are gonna add columns with this function. So let's say function add columns, and it's gonna take a parameter named columns. And here we can define the columns that we are gonna need. So let's do that. So let's say columns, and we're gonna need the, let's say, image, and let's echo that out. Like, let's name the column as poster, and to our text domain, add the text domain, my plugin. And let's say next one, we want to add the release year, and let's add release year. And let's say we want to add another one, and this one is the video type. So let's add here video type. And finally we're gonna return the columns. Why? Because we want to add this, or we want to run this function with a hook. So the hook name is actually, the hook name should be manage movies post columns. That means we need to pass the post type name inside the hook dynamically. So let's call the add action method, and let's say manage, then the post type name this time is movie posts columns. Now here this portion varies. This portion you need to define the post type that you're gonna customize the data table, and the next one is our function. This time it is add columns. So now let's include this file in my plugin.php file. So let's say includes data tables. So require once, my plugin path dot inc slash data tables slash movie data table dot php. Alright, so let's go into the backend and check that out. Hit refresh, and as you can see, our custom columns has been added, like poster, release year, video type. But the problem is those files has been added, after the comment and the date. Let's say we want to add those things before, the default file, default columns, or place just before the date columns. But let's say we do not need this column, so we can optionally remove this from here, and then we can apply. Alright, so let's modify a bit in our function. So let's head over into the code editor again, and let's go to the movie data table, and here let us first unset that we do not unset those that we do not want initially loaded. So let's do columns and date, and let's define it after here, columns, date, and let's say published on. My plugin. So what it will do, it will unset the date, I should say. It will unset the date column initially, and it will load after the image, release year, and the video type columns loaded. So let's check that out. Hit refresh, and as you can see, our date name we actually changed from date to published on, and that also been affected. And as you can see, our these columns has been added as well. Also, let's say we want to modify these two columns, and we want to load these two columns after the video type. So how you can do that? So let's head over into the code editor again, and let's unset those columns initially, columns, and if you want to unset the author column, you need to say author, and for the unset, and for the the taxonomy column, you need to say it a bit differently. You need to say first the taxonomy and then the taxonomy name. In our case, our taxonomy name, if you can remember from the custom taxonomy episode, our taxonomy name was movie cat. So let's add that here, and now let's head over into the backend and hit refresh, and as you can see, those two fields has been removed. Now we want to add those again, so let's do that like this. Let's say we want to add it after video type, so author, let's do like author and duplicate it. Let's copy the whole thing and say what categories. Okay, alright, so let's go into the backend again and hit refresh, and as you can see, those two fields has been added after the video type. So now before I forget, let's fix the function names like as we have done before. My plugin movie head column, so copy and add it here. So hit refresh, hopefully everything will be okay, and it's okay. Now the next step is to save or showing those values into the appropriate columns. So for that we need to output the values. So let's create another function and say output table column values. So let's create a function and named it like output column content. Output column content, and it's gonna accept two parameters. Actually, first one is the column in which you want to put the value, and second one is the post ID from which post ID you want to show that on that particular column. So let's add this fields or parameters, I should say, and the next one is post ID. So let's open and close. Now let's use a switch statement. So let's do switch, sorry, it's misspelled it, switch, and pass the column here, and here let's open and close the case image, and then echo and get the post thumbnail function, and it's gonna take the post ID, and we're gonna define an array with a fixed image size 50 by 50. Then let's break, and we're gonna define a default. Let's just add break for now. And then what we need to add or use another filter and hook our function. So let's add filter, and the filter name is manage the post type name underscore posts underscore custom column. So let's do that. Manage, sorry, let's add quotation, manage, our post type name is movie, then posts custom column, and then we need to pass our function here and add the priority, and because it is returning two parameters, so we have to define two. If it returns one parameter, then you can use one, or you can leave it blank. But if the filter passes two or more parameters, then you have to define the number. So let's go into the backend and see what happens. Hit refresh, and as you can see, the poster image has been added. Now let's say we want to add the other columns as well. So let's copy this case and paste it here, and this time we want the release year, and this time we do not need to use this function. We need to use get post meta function, and we need to provide the post ID, and then we need to provide the meta key name. So let's go into the meta box, and I think our release year meta key is my plugin movie release year. So let's add it here, and let's say the last one is true. That means we want a single value. So let's go into the backend and check that out. Hit refresh, and as you can see, our value has been added. Now the next one, similarly, let's copy and paste it here. Okay, this time we want the video type, and then our video type key, meta key, then paste it here. Then let's go into the backend and hit refresh, and this one has also been added. Now the problem that I can see is, if you focus on this image, the image is kind of a cropped or compressed, like it becomes squared, and it doesn't look natural. Because if you see, this image is the height is more than the width, and it looks natural, but it just compress the image with 50 by 50, so it becomes squared and doesn't look good. So we can fix that out. In WordPress, you can define the image size by using add image size, and you can define like poster, thumbnail. It's just the ID of the image reference, and we can just define the width, and then the height will be auto. And then what we can do, we can copy, and rather than giving the size hard coded, let's provide the image ID. Now let's see what happens. So if we hit refresh, now it looks more natural. So this is how you can modify the data table. And the last thing that I want to show you, that you can make this column sortable. For example, if we go to the post column, then you can see, as you can see, title or date, you can sort out the date. So you can, that means you can also add those features on the custom column too. Let's say we want to sort out the movies by the release year or the video type, so we can do that. So let's head over into our code editor, and for this we need to use two functions with two filters. So let's start by making the sortable column. So let's do like making columns sortable, and let's define the function like my plugin make movie columns sortable, and it's gonna take one parameter, that is the columns. And here what we will do, we will define those columns that we want to make them sortable. So let's do like columns, and we want the release year to be sortable. So let's define the key here like this, and we want video type to be sortable. Okay, and because this needs to be hooked with the filter, so we need to return the columns finally. And then we need to add this function with a filter. So let's add that filter, and the filter name is manage edit, then post type, then sortable column. So here we need to change this portion with our post type name. In this case it's movie, and then we need to pass our function name here. All right, so let's head over into the backend and hit refresh. As you can see, these columns are now indicating that they are sortable, but the problem is these columns are not functioning yet, because we haven't write any logic for this. But before that, actually we need more columns so that we can justify that whether these things are working or not. So let's give me some times to add some quick. Alright guys, so as you can see I have added some movies with some dummy years, although those movies are not published on that specific years, but I have done it because by this data we can understand that whether our sorting is working or not. So I have added 4 movies. So now let's go into the code editor and add some code to make this working. So let's head over into the code editor and add our column sorting logic. So let's say columns sorting logic, and let's create a function and say my plugin movie columns sorting logic, and it also gonna take one parameter, and it will be the query that we are gonna modify. So, and then it's also it will also trigger when an action triggers. So let's add that action, and the action name is pre-get posts. So pre-get posts, and then we need to pass our function name here. So now let's add our logic. Before that, let's check whether this is admin or not, or let's check is this running the main query or not. Okay, it should be is main query. So what we're doing here, if it isn't admin or the main query is not running, then we are just return from here, we'll do nothing. But if this condition passes, then we are gonna check the key here, the release key, whether this is the value of the query get function, query get order by. That means if the order by request has the release year value, then we are gonna define our logic. We're gonna set the query. So query set, and we're gonna set this for order by for the meta value, and then set the query to the meta key that we are gonna using for sorting, and the meta key for the release year, I believe this one. So let's put it here, and I think that's it. So let's go into the admin area and hit refresh, and let's click. As you can see, it has been sorted, and you can see the action order by value is release year, and the order is ascending, and it is sorting and ascending and descending order, as you can see. So let's go into the editor again, just copy this one for the video type as well. Let's copy the video type, add it here, and let's provide the meta key for the video type as well. So there it is. Now let's hit refresh in the admin panel again. Alright, now click on here. So as you can see, the HD and the SD, so those values are sorted out, as you can see. So when you click this has been sorted out, and not this one. So when you click this, then it is sorting by the year, not the video type. So this is how you can easily modify your data table as well. So that's all for this episode. Hope you guys liked it. See you in the next one.